They come at night, pale, immortal, and thirsty for blood. From ancient fears to modern films, vampires have haunted human imagination. But where did this terrifying legend begin, and could there be truth behind the myth? Join me as we sink our teeth into the history of the vampire, uncovering tales so chilling they'll leave you up all night. Our story starts long before Bela Lugosi and Edward Cullen made sparkling vampires cool. We're going way back, deeper into the past than even the ancient Greeks. You see, vampires have existed in the folklore of many cultures throughout history. In Eastern Europe, they were once believed to be undead creatures rising from their graves to drink the blood of the living. According to Slavic folklore, these blood-sucking ghouls were known as the Ampires. And yes, that is where the word vampire came from. But the Ampire wasn't the only creature of the night. In Greece, there was the Vrykolakas, a kind of vampire-like demon who used a corpse as a vessel. Villagers believed that the Vrykolakas would possess a corpse, causing them to bloat, rise, and drink the blood of family members. These beliefs led to some pretty extreme measures. People suspected of being vampires or witches had their bodies staked and mutilated after death, hoping to keep the monsters trapped inside. So, you might think that the vampire myth is just a bunch of superstitious nonsense. But there may actually be some truth to these gruesome stories. In the Middle Ages, it was common for doctors to misdiagnose certain conditions, especially those caused by diseases like tuberculosis. Symptoms such as a distended abdomen and bloody coughs were often attributed to witchcraft or demonic possession rather than medical causes. This led to the persecution of innocent people, including the infamous Salem witch trials in the United States. But let's focus on the vampires. During the same era, people started noticing something strange happening in the countryside. Corpses were reported to be rising from their graves and terrorizing the locals. And this isn't just one person writing crazy stuff in a diary. We're talking about official documents written by judges, priests, and other respected members of society. One of the most famous cases took place in Hungary in 1732 when a woman named Elizabeth Bathory was accused of being a vampire. Witnesses claimed to have seen her rising from her coffin and drinking the blood of family members. Although these stories were never proven to be true, they helped to spread the legend of the vampire across Europe. In fact, during the late 1700s and early 1800s, a condition known as porphyria was also linked to vampirism. Porphyria is a rare genetic disorder that affects the production of hemoglobin, which is the protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen throughout the body. People with this condition often have symptoms such as discolored skin, sensitivity to sunlight, and the growth of facial hair due to increased levels of male hormones. Back then, this illness was poorly understood and people with porphyria were often isolated and feared. Some historians believe that the link between porphyria and vampirism came from the fact that people with the disease were sometimes treated horribly and left to die, leading to rumors that they were drinking the blood of family members. Others say that the symptoms of porphyria resembled those commonly associated with vampires, such as the sensitivity to light and the reddish discoloration of the skin. It's important to note that while porphyria may have contributed to the vampire hysteria of the time, it doesn't cause people to crave blood or rise from their graves. Ultimately, these beliefs were just another example of how people used supernatural explanations to understand illnesses they couldn't explain. And speaking of things that go bump in the night, if you're enjoying this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up for more spine-chilling tales. Now let's get back to those spooky stories. In the 1700s, the belief in vampires became so widespread that it even reached the medical community. Doctors started taking a closer look at the supposed vampire epidemic and trying to find a scientific explanation for it. One theory that emerged was that the blood of young children contained magical properties that could keep vampires at bay. This led to a disgusting and painful practice called bloodletting, where children were subjected to regular blood draws by doctors who believed that removing some of their blood would prevent them from becoming vampires. Of course, This didn't work, and it often put the children at risk of infection and other complications. But the craziest part was that some doctors even believed that adult vampires could be cured by transfusing them with the blood of virgins. Can you imagine the nightmare of being told that you need a transfusion of virgin blood to cure your vampire problem? Thankfully, this bizarre theory was eventually disproven, and the practice of bloodletting fell out of favor. But it just goes to show how far-reaching the vampire panic of the time had become. The vampire craze continued into the 18th and 19th centuries. For example, in 1748, an Austrian professor named Johann Joseph von Planck published a paper detailing cases of alleged vampires in Serbia. He blamed these creatures on bad air in the region, which he claimed caused people to bloat, rise from their graves, and drink blood. Meanwhile, an English physician named John Hawley Street claimed that vampires were a result of excessive sexual activity, particularly masturbation. According to his theory, semen produced from masturbation turned to blood and caused the body to bloat after death, leading to the formation of vampires. To prevent this, he recommended a strict moral code and abstaining from self-pleasure. Yikes. Clearly, these theories were just another example of how people tried to explain the unexplainable. But perhaps the most influential contribution to vampire lore came from a Romanian prince named Vlad the Impaler, better known as Vlad the Impaler. Now, Vlad wasn't a vampire himself, but his brutal actions and eerie appearance inspired the legend of Dracula. Born in Sigisoj in 1431, Vlad rose to power during a time of great turmoil in Eastern Europe. The Ottoman Empire was expanding westward, threatening the Christian kingdoms of the region, and Vlad found himself caught in the middle. Despite his noble birth, Vlad was forced to live among peasants and develop a taste for their simple life. When he returned to power, he brought his peasant ways with him, much to the disgust of the nobles. They hated how he ate, preferring to use his hands instead of utensils and choosing peasant food over fancy dishes. Vlad was also mocked for his unusual appearance. He was tall and thin with long, messy hair and a big hooked nose. The nobles thought he looked like a bird, so they gave him the nickname Vlad the Impaler. But Vlad didn't care what they thought of him. He was too busy carrying out his plans to defend his people against the Ottomans. Vlad's brutal tactics in battle earned him a reputation as a merciless warrior. He was known for impaling his enemies on wooden stakes, leaving them to slowly bleed to death. This gruesome method of execution was not only meant to be a form of punishment, but also a warning to others who might consider opposing him. One of the most infamous incidents involving Vlad's brutality was his alleged Feast of the Black Soup, where he supposedly invited boyars or nobles to a banquet and served them a soup containing chunks of human flesh. Supposedly, Vlad dipped bread into the soup and asked the nobles to guess its main ingredient. When they finally guessed correctly, Vlad revealed that he was serving the remains of the boyar who had insulted him. Needless to say, this didn't improve his relationship with the nobility. As if his impaling and cannibalistic tendencies weren't enough, Vlad was also fascinated with the occult. He allegedly held secret rituals and ceremonies in the ruins of an ancient fortress near his castle. The fortress was said to be haunted by demons, and Vlad believed that by communing with them, he could gain great power. This only added to the growing belief that he was a vampire, or at least a servant of the devil. So Vlad may not have been a literal vampire, but his combination of bloodthirsty behavior, demonic associations, and creepy appearance made him the perfect inspiration for the legendary Dracula. After Vlad's death in 1476, stories of the cruel and mysterious prince began to circulate throughout Eastern Europe. His record-keeping was lost, leading to speculation that he might have sold his soul to the devil. Rumors swirled that he dipped his bread in blood and performed dark rituals in the ruins of an old fortress. One day, a nobleman entered Vlad's castle and stumbled upon a horrifying sight. On the walls were paintings depicting Vlad dipping bread into a goblet, except instead of wine, it was filled with human blood. But Vlad was nowhere to be seen. The nobleman searched for him in the courtyard, eventually discovering a hole in the wall. Beyond it, he he heard the sound of drums, horns, and singing, along with the smell of roasted meat. Curious and slightly creeped out, he decided to investigate further. Peeking around the corner, he saw a courtyard filled with men and women dancing and celebrating. There was a large cauldron over a fire, and everyone was drinking from a single cup, taking turns to dip bread into it. Suddenly, someone caught the nobleman's eye. It was Vlad, covered in blood from head to toe, dipping bread into the cup and eating with wild abandon. So, how did this tale inspire the modern vampire? Well, in 1897, Bram Stoker published The History of Dracula, which featured a character heavily based on Vlad the Impaler. Stoker's novel popularized many of the traits we associate with vampires today, such as blood drinking, shape-shifting, and hypnotic powers. Vlad's brutal reputation, demonic interests, and creepy appearance fit perfectly with the Stoker's vision of the ultimate vampire, Count Dracula. Fast forward to today, and vampires are everywhere in films, TV shows, novels, and games. They've evolved from terrifying monsters to romantic heroes and everything in between. But no matter how sparkly or seductive they may seem, one thing remains constant: the vampire is an immortal being living in darkness, craving blood. And while science may have debunked the myths, the legends endure, reminding us that sometimes the scariest things are the ones we create in our own minds. Are vampires real, fact, or fiction? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling tales. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay curious, stay scared.